if you feel like you have a pushy arm path and your arm is getting really sore, this video is for you. Over the past decade as a pitching instructor, I have learned that there are countless ways that athletes figure out how to get disconnect or drag in their arm path that leads to serious injuries and potentially ends careers. Really quick, let me give you 2 ways to identify whether or not this is you. If when you are flipping your hand, your elbow is beneath the shoulder plane and you're creating a V in your arm path, that typically means that your elbow has to climb back up to shoulder height, which tends to lead to a lot of stress on the elbow. Number 2, you identify with a side view. Number 2, when you're in a side view, you want to make sure that your elbow and your chest are in this position here. When you start to see your elbow creep out in front of your face or in front of your chest here, or if you see your elbow up above the shoulder height here, that's also a disconnect as well. In particular, I've seen athletes struggle with stress in the front of the shoulder or maybe the pec or the bicep, and or stress in the bottom of the elbow as well. But the thing you need to understand about throwing mechanics is we do not want to be picture perfect. We want to be video perfect because we are moving through that motion really fast. And those particular positions I would classify as a symptom, not a solution. For you coaches out there wanting to teach your athletes to get into more healthy positions, rather than telling your athlete to get their elbow up or get their elbow to pull back, let me give you the solution. For this video, I'm going to use the example of a rubber band. When you're pulling a rubber band apart, the elasticity of the material that it's made of will cause there to be tensions on both sides that you're pulling from. So when you release one side of the rubber band, it snaps. Now really quick, let's imagine like you're holding that rubber band, but it's a lot bigger, and rather than holding it between 2 thumbs, you're attaching it to your back hip here and your back shoulder here. There's really only a couple ways you can pull these points apart, one of them being a side stretch this way and the other being rotationally. Now obviously today's tutorial isn't about teaching you how to do cartwheels, so we can go ahead and eliminate that option. Now when you're thinking about your arm path, the arm naturally wants to rest down here by your sides, but baseball is not a natural movement. We want to get your arm up to shoulder height here where the hand is flipping over the elbow and it's getting into this L-shaped position. The reason we want the forearm to flip over your shoulder is because we are transitioning from a linear movement, just like a cartwheel, and we transition into a rotational movement because the chest needs to square up to the target so that the hand can then transition into this position where the ball is now aiming at your target instead of aiming this direction when we're throwing. If we think about those 2 points on the rubber band, if we keep one end of the rubber band here and we try to rotate this way, that rubber band is essentially going to get stretched out, but this point is anchored in, so that as you're getting to this position, the resistance of that rubber band actually makes your upper body want to snap back towards this end of the rubber band. When we allow our upper body to twist ahead of your lower body, the resistance of that rubber band causes your chest to decelerate as it's coming around, which causes your arm to have to work harder to get the ball going from aiming this direction to aiming this direction. So what happens is the smaller joints on the body begin to compensate for this lack of hip rotation, and then they tend to lead out in this direction. So for athletes who struggle with the issue of getting their elbow to lead out in front, what I tell them is they need to tighten the slack of that rubber band from the correct side of the rubber band. When we rotate first from the lower half while the upper half is still developing up in this direction, what we're doing is we're creating a new type of rotational tension where the hip is now creating tension away from the chest, which makes the chest want to square up to the target faster. Now here's where athletes fall into problems with that first issue I was talking about. If we move into a good lower half position here and your upper half is pulling in opposition to that tightening of the slack movement we talked about earlier, but the arm path is still down here, what's going to happen is the arm is going to create a drag or a lag where you're not able to square up the chest without your arm still being aiming down. That's how athletes run into that V shape. When their hand is flipping and their elbow's in the way, their elbow starts dipping to compensate for that position just to get out of the way of the ball so that their arm can climb into layback where they get on top of the ball. Rather than running into the issue of the elbow getting in the way of the hand, we want to make sure that while we're floating to the surface here, we're not leaving the hand behind while we're going into rotation. We want to delay your rotation. We want to delay the tightening of the slack till the hand is getting into a more neutral position where it can start flipping as the hip is hipping. By timing up your hip and flip window, that's going to allow you to be in a good position to accept the acceleration of your torso, which allows the arm to lay back effortlessly so that it can then accelerate just like the tip of a whip, where the tip of the whip snaps towards its target to create more velocity and take stress off the arm. Now I know there's no one-size-fits-all model, but I hope that helps a lot of you guys who struggle with that dip and lead of the elbow movement. If you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me at Bobby Bobby O'Neill 37 on all social media platforms. You can also leave a comment down below here. Make sure to follow Headbanger Sports for any future content. My name is Bobby O'Neill. Hope that helps, guys. Take care. God bless.